Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Shred and Soul.
I'm Shred, aka Kevin Wood.
And I'm Soul, aka Wind Hughes. I think we have an interesting episode for you today. We're covering a lot of things, and you might see some sweat on our faces because our house studio is not air conditioned, and we're in the beginning of a heat wave in Northern California, which I love because it's so sunny and hot, and the garden loves it. But in the corner of our house where we are right now, it is hot, and we can't put the fans on because it'll interfere with the sound. But we're loving our summer, and excuse us if we start looking really gritty by the end of this.
Well, at least it's not 110 in here.
Not yet. We had a great weekend. We had a long weekend, and that was really fun.
Yeah. And we did put another video out. That last one, I'd just like to say thanks for the comments. And if you haven't shared it with anybody, spread it around. I'm looking forward to doing more of those videos and exposing some of the intricacies and the genius of the songwriting. So maybe watch for those coming up.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the last episode, maybe go check it out. It was Kevin doing a live Malfunction version of Winter Bites and doing some exhibiting how to play the song itself, and it was a really fun episode.
Yeah, fun to do that.
Yeah. So we're going to do something a little different today, but I just want to say before I start that at the end of this episode, we are going to have the images of listeners' cats that they sent in, because in a previous episode we had our cat and we talked about cats, and we asked people to send in their cat pictures, and they did.
And we're going to put them on a reel for you.
Yes, so stay tuned towards the end to see all the cool cats that we have to show you.
And if you send in a picture of your cat that you don't want published on the web, made public for the world to see, we'll listen to you and refrain from posting it.
And we'll still take more cat pics, right?
Right.
And maybe we'll open it up to
them.
dogs too. Fun animals and pets. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Send us your pets and your animals. And it could be a lizard or an iguana or a bird. Or I love parrots. Anyone have any talking parrot clips? Maybe we'll put that in.
Yeah. If we send pictures of your parrots. And maybe what we could do is print them out and turn them into Christmas ornaments.
How do you see that?
Print them out, glue them to a little piece of plastic.
Oh, you mean a photo?
Yeah.
Like a photo thing?
Turn them into Christmas ornaments.
Is that what you want to do with them?
And then at Christmas time we'll show you our tree, and it'll be covered.
We'll
with
have
your
a
cats.
separate tree for the episodic animals.
Yeah. So I digress. We should
You
get
did.
back to business.
Okay. Today I want to share with you something that I work with on an almost daily basis and experience on a daily basis. And in part, just personally because of my life and my personal experiences and what's important to me. And also because of my work. I'm a psychotherapist and a spiritual teacher and spiritual coach. And I work with individuals daily who are wanting to explore their lives, change their lives, enhance their lives, grow personally or spiritually. And what I want to talk about today is something that comes up very frequently. And especially today where there's a lot of talk about life being a simulation and, the matrix and the programming, what programs us. And we did have an episode where we talked about this a little bit before. But I want to come back to it because it's up a lot. And sometimes people begin with a feeling of questioning who they are and a sense of that reality is not what it seems, that there's something artificial about it, or there's something false about it, or there's a feeling that they're waking up from a dream, that they've suddenly, a veil's been lifted and nothing looks as it once did. They don't feel the same about things as they once did. And this is a very important step in our evolution, our spiritual evolution and our personal evolution. And for many people, as it's happening, can be a very frightening experience. So I wanted to dive into this. This is a period of life that I see as another birth. So imagine an infant's being born out of the very safe environment of its mother's womb, where it's been nourished and fed, and there was no question about reality. This was the reality that they were in for a long time and felt safe, secure in. And then all of a sudden, they're being pushed out of it, and they're in the birth canal, and it's dark and feels stressful and very oppressive. And as an adult, when we feel this could be very frightening because we don't know where we're going. We just know that where we were no longer feels satisfying or real to us. And so we're in this dark, maybe you could call it dark night of the soul phase of transformation, but we don't know where we're going. And similar to a caterpillar who goes into a cocoon, the caterpillar goes in and their entire structure of who they are changes in there. And in that process, imagine that being us. We're like, what the hell is going on? And I don't know who I am. I don't know what's happening. I don't eat what I used to. I don't move the way I used to. And as an adult, we might question these things. We'll question everything about who we are. We might question all of our core beliefs. We might find that things in our life that once gave us a lot of meaning no longer are meaningful to us. We may question the relationships that we have. We may question our friendships. We may question the job we chose. We may question the art we've been involved in. You know, it would be as if suddenly you were questioning yourself as a guitar player. Mm-hmm. That would be earth-shaking.
Well, I do frequently, though.
Yeah. Maybe you can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
And so if you think of us questioning our purpose, it's basically that sense of, I just woke up in a dream and what the hell am I doing? Who am I? And I don't know what I want to do anymore. How frightening that can be. And in this Western culture that we live in, if you're here in the US and in a westernized country listening to this, we don't have a lot of built-in room for these soul initiations, these transformations, these awakenings to a new level of seeing and being and understanding, a new level of personal and spiritual awakening. And we can call it an awakening. And so often there's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. There could be a lot of depression, a lot of confusion, a lot of pushing away people in our lives because we just don't know how we feel about them anymore, or wanting to quit our job. And people around us can get very, very concerned when they see that and usher us off to therapy or a hospital or somewhere, because sometimes we're not safe.
That kind of a feeling would probably cause you to possibly seek therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that could be a good thing at a point in this process.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, people look at us dissolving in what we could call an ego death. We're shedding who we are. And when we resist it and the people around us resist it and the culture resists it, they could call us crazy. Our depression could be perceived as needing to be medicated. And in certain circumstances, medication might be appropriate if someone is feeling very unsafe in this moment and they want to do harm to themselves. You know, they get lost down the rabbit hole.
Or maybe they just don't feel good.
They don't feel good.
Yeah.
They're very anxious and can be afraid.
Yeah.
And in that moment, people might want to use medication. I would say in the initial stages of this, medication is totally unnecessary. But if someone reaches a point where they are truly, truly unable to stabilize, then it's really important to seek help. And at the end of this part, I will talk about what are the tools and options we can utilize to help us.
What would be a common reason, or what would cause that? I mean, being a therapist, you've probably seen it dozens of times, but a typical experience that would cause that kind of unsettled feeling.
That's a really good question, which I didn't even have down in my notes, so thanks. A lot of things can cause that. It could be a spontaneous just awakening, which we have. just the spontaneous moment of suddenly seeing something from a different perspective, like a spiritual awakening, a personal epiphany. It could be a trauma in life, a near-death experience, or a tragedy or trauma that pushes our mind to its edges, so far to its edges that everything we held on to dissolves away. And in that traumatic moment, our vision changes. It could be a divorce, life-changing things. It could be losing a job that we're identified with. Something that challenges our identity in a way that we're shattered.
Right.
It could be for some people extreme joy, having a child. It could be medicines, medicines that are used by many cultures to break through the mind and the emotions, to experience a place where the veil lifts and we know that we're something more than our beliefs. So if we look at this as when we're born, we start taking on layers of identity. We're born into a family of a certain religion. We're born into a family of a certain socioeconomic background. We're born into a family that's angry and hateful. We're born into a family with certain beliefs about how we're supposed to be, how much money we're supposed to make, the religion, whatever it is. As we talked about earlier, telling you should like orange cars versus green cars. We learn everything from our environment and our family in the early years. And so those become layers that are piled upon us, and we live within this heaviness of these layers of beliefs. And we usually don't question the layers that we have, why we want to do certain things, why we have an expectation to achieve and perform, or why our sense of who we are and our identity is attached and dependent upon these experiences, these achievements, these belief systems. And they keep us in a very safe, prescribed, sometimes manipulated state of being. Our culture and our society and our political systems often are part of steering us to internalizing certain beliefs, certain cultural beliefs, certain political, socioeconomic beliefs that then we strive to do. And it keeps our system moving, it keeps our family moving, whatever the externals are. And so when we have these experiences that break through that, for whatever reason, it becomes shattered, good way, traumatic way, whatever. Suddenly those layers of clothing, it's like taking off the coat, taking off the shirt.
Now, a shattering would happen, say, a core belief system, right? Mm-hmm. I can think of belief systems that possibly aren't that earth-shattering. So we're talking about core belief systems, right? And that egoic identification.
I'm talking about anything that becomes identified with who we are. Mm-hmm. It could be that, I only wear black. It could be that I imagine I'm a therapist and a spiritual teacher. Mm-hmm. That's not who I am. It's what I do. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I become identified with that, my sense and belief of purpose and value becomes identified with that. It becomes part of a false system, part of a false dream. So I'm looking at anything that we identify with. And I'm not saying identification is bad. I'm saying when we identify our value and our sense of who we are in attachment to these things, that becomes questionable because it veils who we are. So as we take off the layers of clothing, the coat, the shirt, the pants, the underwear, the socks, and we question these things, we can feel very, very naked. So imagine you suddenly find yourself walking in, downtown Manhattan or your little town, and you feel naked. What are you going to do? You're going to go hide. You're going to be scared. You're not going to know what to do. You're going to search for clothing, anything to put on. Mm-hmm. And our identity does that. Our persona does that. We just need to put something on us to identify us and tell us who we are so we feel clothed and safe. Mm-hmm. And that's some of the things that I think our culture makes difficult for us, is because it's really wonderful when we are able to have a time to be naked. Because in that period of nakedness, we can discover quiet. So if our friends and our family are able to support us and we're able to create space for this to happen, which is a difficult thing to find in our world. Most of us are very, very busy in our lives. But when we're in this sort of transformational period, it's very important that we take the time and find a way to embrace it, or it will become a crisis. And there isn't any reason for it to become a crisis. It can be addressed.
You could rush and adopt an identity that might not be coming from a good source, right? I mean,
Well,
say you lose everything, and then what if you initially say, well, somebody else is to blame, and you blame that person, and you hold that grudge for the rest of your life, or for a period of time until that goes away. I think what you're saying is to give it time.
we need to give it time, and that's very difficult to do. And we all work and have families or ourselves to take care of, and our culture doesn't support that. Insurance doesn't pay for it necessarily. Unless you have a crisis and a breakdown, they might pay for you to go to a treatment center through which you'll be medicated, and treated in a psychiatric aspect, which might be essential and necessary if you're not safe, if you're suicidal, if you have broken apart to the point where you cannot function. Absolutely, you do whatever you need to do to stabilize. And then as you come out of it, you can start doing some of the things I'm talking about, which is evaluating and questioning everything in your life. So you take the opportunity that this period in the birth canal, this period in the cocoon provides you to release everything and just trust that you will be able to bring the pieces back that you want consciously. And what happens in that naked moment is we realize that we aren't any of these things that we've taken on. We're not our job, we're not our beliefs, we're not our religion, we're not anything. I'm not your wife, I'm not any of those things. I am a sovereign spiritual being living inside this experience. And when I awaken to that, I realize that if I choose to stay in this physical experience, I have to decide what I want out of a conscious choice to take back. So what clothing do I want to take on? Not the clothing that was layered on me by my family or my society. And that's often what an adolescent is trying to do without their consciousness most of the time. Push back from everything layered on them and want to get naked and discover who they are.
But you need a way to discern what is serving you and what's not. I think
that's part.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you start questioning some of the things. Like, what makes me happy? Where did this belief come from? We've talked about orange cars. Where did I learn to like orange cars? Do I even like orange cars? Do I even want an orange car? Do I even want a car? How would my life look from this very conscious area that we've leveled up to of spiritual and personal awakening? And we evaluate our choices. We reflect upon all of the expectations we have on ourselves of anything. To get up at a certain time, to go to sleep at a certain time. And that can be a frightening experience when we allow ourselves to be naked and go, I don't know. I don't know why I stay up late. I don't know why I'm with this man. I don't know why. And in the proper environment, those questions can be asked with a sense of stability that allows us to be quiet, to let the questions rise, to not have to answer them per se, but to note them, reflect upon them, and in the stillness of that silence, we discover who we are, which is not any of those. And then we can very gracefully and with conscious choice decide what tools we want to bring back on so that we can survive in this world and have relationships in this world. And part of what happens in that at times means that when we come through this transformation, hopefully it hasn't had to become a crisis. We've been able to notice it and address it before it becomes a crisis. Which is often hard for people to do, to acknowledge they're questioning everything in life and to even tell people about it. But it's really important.
It seems like if you were inclined, and you mentioned the spontaneous dissolving of ego and attachment, which is possible, but a decision to do that, to take that path, I think is the case for me when I've tried it. The crisis part, of course, we all have crises, but that seems like it would be a part of it, is being able to know enough or feel enough to where you choose to do this, to let this happen to you. in
It is
a
a
conscious
choice.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we have signs early on. I hate my job. I don't want to get up and go to work today. I really don't enjoy being in the presence of this person. I'm really eating this food, but I don't really think I want to eat animals. Or I don't really think I want to eat whatever. Or I'm going to my temple or my mosque or my church and I'm questioning everything I'm hearing. And when we have those questions, we tend to shut them down. And people around us say, oh, stop it, you're just going through a phase or whatever. So sometimes it takes an earth-shattering sort of event for us to break through that. And then we have the questions, we don't have much choice because we're shattered at that point. But if we can acknowledge through life questioning everything, and we can spend times in nature, in quiet, so that we experience moments when we're not identified. Those things that we imagine are who we are not what we're hearing, doing, seeing, feeling in the moment. So say sitting on a mountaintop or sitting somewhere quietly and not following our thoughts, and we realize that there's a really deep sense of peace, and suddenly my sense of who I am expands, and I feel a part of this scene that I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. I feel a part of that sky that's above me. I feel a part of that flower that's so beautiful and tiny that I never would have noticed. Our sense of who we are expands, so that if we have those moments of quiet and we expand, we become part of everything. And then that awakening moment, we are no longer identified with the persona and the ego as we once were. When we come back into this world, we have to choose, just because we need these tools. We need a sharp mind. Mm-hmm. We need a stable emotional world. We communicate in the language of thoughts and emotions. We may need to earn money if we need to have a job. We may have a family we need to take care of. So we allow ourselves to become naked, to identify with something more, and then we come back and we choose very aware and very consciously what clothing we want to put back on, metaphorically speaking. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take this pair of pants or this dress or this coat because we chose it, because we needed to interact some of it in this world. But we no longer identify with those things. Those no longer become where we look for our meaning. They no longer become where we hold our value. They no longer become our level of success. We may feel good about the fact that we earn enough money to feed our children. We may even have a sense of pride, but that pride is really an appreciation that we've actualized an intention. I intended to make enough money to buy a comfortable home. Mm. And sometimes pride, I think, is looked at negatively, but sometimes pride is really a reflection that I've been able to manifest my intention. Mm-hmm. Wow. And then we look again and say, I want to manifest this intention out of a clear, conscious being. I would like to manifest some amazing music. And you hear it played back, and there's a moment of pride. And often what that pride really is, and I'm aware that I actually manifested that. Mm-hmm. And there's an excitement in that because we're empowered as creators in those moments when we manifest and create what we intended. That's a conscious creation, a conscious living, which is different than, wow, I did that song and that means now I'm an amazing person. Now I have value out in the world. Now I'm somebody. Mm-hmm. That attachment comes from an egoic place, and that's not what I'm talking about right now. So some of the things we can look for as we're questioning and asking, besides where maybe those things come from, is to be aware of, when I'm in this situation, am I feeling joy? Am I feeling whole? Am I feeling connected mm-hmm. to my inner self? Am I feeling connected to life? Am I doing this out of my own conscious choice? Or am I doing this out of some sense of demand or expectation?
Well, it seems like those are, definitely the questions to ask yourself. But I've seen in my own behaviors certain attachments to outcomes that, say, I get it in my head, I want to buy a certain thing, right? And I go on eBay and I search for it, find it, buy it. I'm just like ecstatic. That's like, I don't know. And then after I get it, I'm still happy I got it, but I want to get another one and another one. So it's like, it masks itself as something that is really making me happy, really kind
Or are
of
you just addicted to the
rush of buying
the
things.
rush? Yeah, there's a chemical ruch when we get
So
something,
you have to
achieve
be
something.
careful when you
Yeah.
make a decision. Is it truly? You have to ask it enough questions.
Yeah, and is there addiction to that? I got another one. I have another one. I have another one. I'm building a house. Now it's bigger. Now it's bigger. Now it's bigger. I'm getting a job. I need more money. I need more money. Those kind of questions. So you really have to connect with ourselves and say, like, what am I feeling? What is happening here?
Yeah.
And choose very consciously. There's a saying that we have to die in order to be born. You know, and what that means is we die an ego death in order to be born into the true nature of who we are.
Right.
And living from the true nature of who we are is pretty blissful and amazing. Doesn't mean we don't have pain or suffer. And I do want to mention that as we're shedding, this process can be very stressful. It could be very exciting. But for sure, a lot of grief will come up. Because as we release and let go of anything, grief is a part of that. Even if it's something we see is not good for us, there's grief. We may leave a job, and there's grief that's gone now, even though we know we're onward to something else, or we leave a relationship that we know really was not healthy. But there's grief. Grief for the unactualized dreams, grief for the parts that we enjoyed that we no longer will have, grief for just the changes in our life. So grief is a part of this, which sometimes folks find a little uncomfortable and want to avoid the grief, which could be depressing. And that's another place we tend to medicate away. In this culture, we don't tolerate a lot of pain. But I think that the important thing is that we take the time to sit in reflection, sit in quiet. If we have an experience that makes us question everything, if you can, see this as an opportunity. Reach out to your friends and your family. People who you trust could help guide you and bring you through this. It could be a therapist, could be a spiritual teacher. It could be a good book. It could be something that talks about this process, and there are many books that do that. Could be a good podcast, but reach out to others, because this is an experience that almost every human being has, whether they want to talk about it or not, or whether they actualize it or not. Sometimes it happens and we choose to go back into the womb. Hell no, I'm not being born. I like it much better in the womb. And we go back. We shut down and pretend we don't know what we know and we didn't see what we saw. And that's very difficult. And that means we live our life often with a lot of pain and a lot of sadness, because we're not truly living from who we know we are and we know it's possible. I'm not going to read. I was going to read something from my book. I'll save it for another time. We've been going on for quite a while, and we want to show the cats. But just for anyone listening to this who maybe has had that experience, I know it's difficult to encapsulate these things in a 20-minute talk, but you can find a lot of this in my book, Life is the Ceremony, How We Live It is the Ritual, Journey of a Feminine Shaman. I do talk about a lot of this there and give a lot of tools. Also, like I said, reach out to people, and you can also email us at shredandsoul@gmail.com. If you have questions, I will answer you, or if you're looking to resources, I will help you if as I can. So I hope that you are able to embrace that dark night of the soul, or that rebirth when it came upon you, or if it comes upon you, in a way that you allow yourself to become naked and go through the emotions, seek out some support, and then come out the other side being born again into that true sense of who you are and living your life consciously from that place.
Well, that was an enlightening discussion.
I kind of rambled on, huh?
Well, no, it was all good. And I think, coming up with a strategy, say you want this in your life. You want to be able to experience yourself in your true nature. which is beyond all the identifications and egos that you might, or the ego identifications that you have. Go for it and try it out. I think it's a practice, and if you can grasp it and you can find it, you might lose it the next day, but you can find it again. You might lose it minute to minute, but it's always there.
Yeah. All right. So on a perfect note, I think we're gonna show you some cat pictures and
subscriber cats.
Yeah, tell you who sent them in. Enjoy. Our first handsome kitty is Shadow, sent in from Tom in Texas. He likes to shred. Our next cat is Leah, sent in by Kathy from New York. Look at that orange kitty.
This is Shanti. This is our cat. She likes to sleep in the guitar case when the guitar's out.
Look at that little face of hers. And now here's Roman, the gargoyle Maine Coon, sent in from Kimberly in Seattle.
Pretty cat.
And here is Isis, sent in from Nancy on Bainbridge Island. And in the next picture of Isis, look, they're taking a sweet nap together. I love it, Nancy.
Hey, Nancy.
And then we have Stella, sent in from Adam in California, another beautiful Maine Coon.
Well, those were some pretty nice cat pictures, and
beautiful cats.
So happy to be able to share that.
I know we had to throw one of Shanti in there because I wanted Shanti to be included. Those beautiful Maine Coons.
Yeah.
Those are gorgeous cats, and everyone's cats. We love cats. Every cat has its own personality, and it's just wonderful.
So hit subscribe and hit like and
comment.
or not like and comment. Stay in touch.
Yeah.
Email us shredandsoul@gmail.com, and happy to be here for you.
Yeah, and again, if you need some support with what we were talking about, please don't hesitate to reach out at shredandsoul@gmail.com. So until next time,
Bye.
Bye.